Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Pull-Up Trade Podcast. I'm your host Samson Folk, and I'm joined, of course, by Trevon Heath. He is the Trey that pulls up. Oh geez, he's punching the mic. He's ready to go. Trey, the Raptors, to give you the high overview here, they've won 7 of 8. They've now won 5 games in a row. During this stretch, they have, I believe, 6 players averaging over double digits points. They don't have any singular player averaging over 21 points per game. They have the best defense in the NBA over the last 8 games. And all of this coincides after we made a podcast. It started immediately after we did the podcast called The Raptors Are Bad at a Lot of Things, when we talked about shot location data, the fact that they're not hitting their shots despite taking good shots, the fact that the defense was built with one player in mind pretty much. And then after that podcast, that player hits the starting lineup, Davion Mitchell. They start winning a bunch of games. How you doing? What the hell? 5 games in a row, 7 of 8. It's been absurd.
I'm doing great. I just want to apologize to all of our lovely listeners. Last week, I predicted a 4-game winning streak. I was far too conservative. I couldn't go the extra mile. They've won all five of those games, which is insane. If you told me at the beginning of the season that put $5 on it, do the Raptors win 5 games in a row in this season, I would not take that bet. A strong chance I don't take that bet. Just they have had easier opponents, but the fact that they've really dug in on the things that they really do well.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't a team that has that high level isolation score that can dribble the ball really well and punch through the middle of the court. But they are a team that can really defend when they put the right guys on the court. Like having one of the best point of attack defenders in Davion, patrolling and manning there, and probably having a guy in the back. And this is probably Scottie's best stretch of defense in a really long time. Might even be his first for his career, honestly. All NBA level defense. So last week I said, can I get the 17th ranked defense? And I apologize for that too, because these boys look elite.
Dude, yeah, so Scottie won Player of the Week. Gradey got selected for the Rising Stars competition. They have the best defense over this 8-game stretch. It is, in my mind, Scottie's best defensive stretch of his career so far. There's a lot of things going really well, and I would have took that too. Like 5 games in a row seems a little bit rich, but you have on your name on screen is Clairvoyant Trey, which is obviously a throwback to the Jalen and the Bill preview podcasts. I used to watch those when I worked at Foot Locker or listen to them. But my God, man, you and I have almost like in perfect concert predicted the good parts of this Raptors season.
Yeah.
And more you than me, because I'm usually like saying, hey, what do you think? And I don't know what's going on that you've been able to predict like 90% of this team's wins. And without any holds barred. It's incredible, dude. We'll throw it to you. Where do you want to start? Because there's a lot of stuff going on here.
That's the beauty of winning. There's just a lot of good things to talk about. Let's talk about Scottie and that Player of the Week and why you think this is his best stretch of defense.
Okay. Firstly, I'll say, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We did it early. 3.5 minutes, dude.
Let's go.
We're on it. We're informed the same way that the Raptors are. And also, if you want to hop around, we will be talking about trades a little bit, but our big trade podcast primer will be coming with all of our pals on Saturday. And on top of that, if you want to jump around, as always, we always timestamp the podcast because we want you to be able to listen to what you want. Not everybody has an hour in them. If you have the hour, we've seen the retention time. We do pretty well. We're happy with it. But hey, if you want to jump around. We will be talking Brandon Ingram at some point in this podcast. We will touch on Andrew Wiggins, like just a smidge. But Scottie wins Player of the Week, and he does it shooting like 40% from the field.
Mm-hmm.
He won it, and he was averaging, 20, 10, and 7, I think were his numbers for that. And obviously a healthy amount of stocks as well. Not an efficient week, but a 3-0 week, and a week wherein he takes the mic and he says, hey, I think that I'm not getting enough gas as a defender because I'm one of the best defenders in the world. I love that. If you're one of the best defenders in the world, talk that talk, dude. And he has been, obviously Davion is setting the tone at the front end of the defense, but Jakob is having a really nice stretch. The thing is, I've gotten questions from listeners, now people will just DM me their mailbag questions because they're very excited to have them heard. There's questions about RJ. Is his defense looking better? There's questions about everybody in the roster. It's like, oh, they're defending better. That happens by osmosis when one guy brings the ruckus, dude. And Scottie has been able to step into the lane to dissuade drives. They've been much better at dissuading teams from driving. He's been closing out hard and still keeping contained. When he's been given the perimeter matchups, he's done a really good job with it. And
Mhm.
does he foul? Yes, but bring the physicality because you're a big physical defender. Like, make the refs call it. Does he get blown by on occasion? Sure, but it's that physicality. He's fronting, he's denying, he's pressing, and he's been able to do it really well. And when you have a guy like Davion in the dig position instead, you feel a little bit better too. They're more connected, but you have to be potent somewhere.
Yeah.
And Scottie is the playmaker on the floor that everybody playing against him fears on the back end. He's the guy who's dissuading people. Davion is the head of the snake, making things really difficult. We talked about it. This Raptors team is designed to inflate his value and
Yep.
productivity because they're so reliant on that specific skill set. He's done a really great job. And like, we'll talk a little bit about Davion doing well on offense too in his limited way. But Scottie, he's what people fear in that defense. Davion's doing a great job of holding up his end of the bargain. Jakob's doing a great job of holding up his end of the bargain. The team as a whole is more connected. The veterans have stepped up, but Scottie Barnes is at the center of it all, mucking things up. He's been a monster.
Terror.
I finally got, because did you play Zelda Wind Waker ever? Probably not.
I have.
Well, okay. So you remember the
I
big
have.
bird who steals the girl?
Yes, I do.
It's called the Helmarock King. And I have many times tried to get a Helmarock King bird tweet to bang. I've used it for players in the past who I deemed fantastic defenders. Scottie was the first one to get traction. What have you thought of Scottie? Is he a Helmarock King, the big old, mariachi bird,
He's like, I describe him like he's like a hurricane. He
Yeah.
wherever he goes,
A
chaos
polar
happens.
vortex. That's for Josh Codenera. He loves the term polar vortex.
And I think like the best part of his defense is like his actual feel for he has like both the length and the athleticism to leave his spot in the court. And sometimes that means going across court to blow up an action and that leads to a steal, going to trap another player. And it increases the value of every other perimeter player. It's like similar to the like Andrew Wiggins, for example. His defense goes up another notch once he moves to the Golden
Yep.
State Warriors because he has Draymond Green, a guy that if Andrew Wiggins does get beat, regardless of where he is on the court, he has the feel to get there in time and shield off the rim. That's how a guy like Jason Tatum doesn't shoot very well for a series. That was a good series for you, but Scottie is making up for so many other guys' mistakes, and he's also creating creating turnovers simply off of his feel and ability to understand the other four guys around him. I think it's one of his best skills, it's one of his gifts, and I think the beautiful part of this run that he's had last year, it kind of felt when he was hitting all those threes, like, is this gonna be stable? I don't know. He's hitting pull up threes. He's hitting 4 or 5 pull up threes for us to win this game. He's been so impactful in the way that he's been playmaking, the way that his play defense, and his shot has not been the greatest. It hasn't. We haven't had that big swing yet where he's hitting a
Mhm.
bunch of threes. Hit the mid range has been okay, but he's been the most impactful player on the court, regardless of who he's playing, for the large majority of this winning streak, which says a lot about like how he can scale once that shot does like get a lot better, and once this team is like really good and you have other great defenders around him, an elite defense might be the norm for the Raptors, which is super exciting.
That Orlando game was, I think, a tremendous indicator, maybe the best of all these games, because the Golden State game was fun, but it wasn't, we didn't see that much. We didn't see a great Golden State game. The Boston game was really fun, but that wasn't Boston's best punch. There's good teams that they've beaten in here. They lost to Milwaukee, obviously, and quite handily. But that game against Orlando, where Scottie, he only took 13 shots. He only scored 17 points, but he had 11 rebounds. He had 8 assists. He He had
Mhm.
3 stocks, and he picked up Paolo a lot. And he got blown by a couple times when he was meeting Paolo like 40 feet from the basket, but he picked him up a lot. And he played denied defense on him 32 feet away from the rim. And he just followed him around like his shadow. He was stuck to him. And like an aggressive shadow, one that can, put its hands on you and kind of maul you a little bit. I don't know if that exists. I haven't dug into the Jungian archetypes in some time, not since, college. He brought everything in that game and has continued to bring it. Atlanta, New Orleans. He's been so how he affects change in the game. It's been so easy to see. And we talked about Tatum. A big thing that Tatum does that really helps the Celtics win games. Of course, Tatum is a giant, enormous driving offensive force, but Tatum rebounds exceptionally well.
Mhm.
He plays very physical for his size, and that means that sorry, that means that the Celtics can play him at the 4 without paying much of a
Yeah.
penalty. Scottie can not only play at the 4, but physically he can dominate a lot of opposing 4s. If he's playing at
Mhm.
3, he obliterates his matchup. That physicality on the glass, in the gaps, as a defensive playmaker, and as an offensive playmaker in the middle of the floor, and as a play finisher, all that stuff just sticks. It's
Yeah.
never really, as long as Scottie plays with that intentionality and that ferocity, that kind of stuff will follow him everywhere. Because as we said, he didn't shoot a lick during this stretch.
Yeah.
He scored 20 a game, but it was not efficient,
Yeah.
and he had to kind of stretch his legs a little bit and be like, I'm still shooting threes because as a team we need somebody to put him up. And there's some open shots here. He hit one tonight, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he
But
did.
that willingness to like go meet the physicality of the other team and then overcome it and provide your own every night, huge aspect of this win streak. And
Yeah.
that was also Davion Mitchell at the point of attack is big there, and Jakob Pertl at
Mhm.
the center position, big there. When you come into every game now against the Raptors, since Davion entered the lineup, they've won 7 of 8 when Davion is a starter again. It's not just Davion. I don't mean to
Of course.
insinuate that, but it's important that he adds a layer of physicality there. And then there's just between Scottie and Jakob playing a lot of minutes, you're just getting bashed all night.
Mhm.
The guy bringing the ball up the floor, bashed. The guy's trying to get extra possessions, bashed on both ends. You're feeling it. Physical team. That's nice. That is
It's
identity.
it's fun. I think that's what's really cool too is although ideally you'd want to see this with like Emmanuel quickly, and these two guys
I mean,
are
of course.
busting gangbusters, but you're kind of seeing like play types and archetypes around this level of Scotty that is useful and that lead to like winning minutes. I I think a big thing for like this season, especially like with Jakob, for a long time, myself and a lot of other fans have wanted a rolling big with Scotty to like accentuate a lot of that passing, but
Mhm.
Jakob's able to one like play make for Scotty also and like accentuates a lot of his cutting ability. We saw that today. They've gotten that they've gotten that pick and roll pinch that's led to Jakob throwing Scotty a lob. I feel like once a game
The
during this.
snug, yeah, they run the
Yeah.
snug pick and roll, and then, when you run it from the top, it's called shorting the pick and roll, is when a
Mhm.
guy cuts from the dunker spot to catch and then throw a lob to the roller. They've done that for between Scotty and Jakob forever, but they did it on a snug pick and roll between Bruce and Scotty. That's a tight area to
Yeah.
navigate all that passing, but they just kind of like ping, ping, pinged it around. Fun plays. Big guys who will look for the pass and everybody can finish at the rim. That's good news. Like we talked
It-
about it. The Raptors were a team that it's like, well, Scotty is far and away the best finisher on the team. He's just not getting enough opportunities to finish.
mhm.
And then they've been able to orchestrate a few more of those opportunities lately.
So it's been fun, and I think having two guys like leading with physicality, him and Jakob, they're winning their minutes in terms of rebounding like fairly aggressively because they're two of the more physical and larger guys. Jakob's larger than most centers in the league, and Scotty's more physical than a lot of fours.
Joe
So
Mazzulla called him a bear, I
he
believe.
he is. I think it's really interesting to see, especially like even from Davion as his archetype. He's the only guy that really isn't trying to score. Offering offering himself as a playmaking hub for Scottie, and that's been more effective than having like a scoring point guard around him. That doesn't mean you change your course of action or anything like that, but there is a pathway that this team might be led with defense, and utilizing Scottie's best strengths in terms of playmaking and defense might be their actual pathway. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years from now, from like being a serious team.
The thing with Davion, and I was just poking around on this because I wanted to see what the Raptors were doing differently during this. We know what they're doing
Mhm.
differently defensively, which actually, as a quick aside, is not much. The Raptors players are playing better defense. This isn't really a tweak or a coaching thing, which is why you and I were not nearly as low on Darko, maybe
Yeah.
as consensus was. We're like, well, this is the scheme, and again, we're talking about the players right now. We're talking about
Mhm.
Scottie affecting the defense. We're talking about Davion affecting the defense. We're not saying Darko did it, because I don't think Darko did it.
Yeah.
Darko is the coach. He's on the sideline and they're running the same scheme. In the same way that when they're playing really bad defense, I'm not looking like he's the one, he did it. It's like, well, the players weren't playing that well, you know? Um, to that effect though, I was looking at what they changed offensively, and touch time has dropped for everybody who has a lot of touches on the Raptors except for Jakob. It's because they've been using Jakob as more of a hub, and
Mhm.
they've been quicker to get the ball to him. And as we know from the start of the season, Davion has very little offensive punch. He had a great night tonight. He's 12 points, 100% shooting, or sorry, 10 points, 100% shooting on 9 assists, and 5 turnovers is not that great, but like 2-to-1 assist ratio, whatever. Who cares? Um, Regardless, Davion, his touch time is higher because he dribbles the ball up the court, but his touch time is so minuscule in the front court, and his touches in the front court are not that high. He's not that involved. He's bringing the
Mhm.
ball up the court. He's getting the Raptors into their action, moving the ball on, and he's saying, hopefully guys guard me to some degree, and you four can figure it out. And if they want Davion to run offense, it's like run a pick and roll with Jakob where you can service him. We talked about it earlier on in the year. The Jakob Davion pick and roll was one of the most efficient pick and roll partnerships
Yeah.
through like 15 games in the NBA. It's not They're not world beaters, but they can find things that work for them. RJ very quiet tonight. He had, just 11 points on 10 shots. His true shooting percentage has been going really high. His effective field goal percentage has been really high over the stretch. He's been efficient. He's been quiet. Scottie has taken on more of that role. They're using the posts more to facilitate offense. They're running through like their pistol stuff with a lot more aggressiveness. They have more pace to their offense as well. And Davion stepping in after this game, Davion is now, his on-offs are positive offensively and positive defensively.
Mhm.
It's not to like, again, we want Emmanuel
Yeah.
quickly to emulate what Davion is doing, because Emmanuel
Yeah.
quickly can sleepwalk to 20 points by just banging threes, and that
Yep.
isn't Davion's bag. However, Davion is here right now, and he is facilitating the blueprint of what might be a winning Raptors team in the future. Is it going to be Davion? I mean,
100%.
I doubt it. Like, that's not a
Yeah.
lead guard. However, you can see when Jakob and Scottie, that front court is supported by a really strong defensive guard, that there's a root there. Now, there's of course talks about, is this winning streak real? What about the tank? I do want to visit this
Yeah.
talking point a little bit.
Only right.
I'll say, and again, I can't remember when I think in 2022 it came out, but somebody did, which month is it most important to win? Like, what month had the highest correlation with playoff success, being good in that month? And it was January. Now that seems like an odd month to do it in. Maybe that speaks to teams being able to win, even though the all-star malaise is coming in, or mid-season malaise. I'm not sure. Or maybe teams have stuff figured out by the midpoint, right? This isn't me saying that, the Raptors are going on a playoff success this year, but that they've gone out and they've won games. It's not fake. they're playing really good basketball. They're playing extremely strong defense, and they're winning games. This team is going to win. This team is not going to the playoffs. This team is
No.
not going to do anything this year. However, they're playing good basketball. They deserve their wins. It's not because other teams are not doing their best. It's not because other teams are weak. Like the the records of the other teams, they weren't that
Yeah.
bad. Like the Wizards, yes, but I'm curious because I know obviously you and I both relented and said, "Tank, we're here. We'll be tanking." How do
Mhm.
you feel now after 7 wins out of 8?
I don't want them to ever lose again, to be honest. It'd be ideal. Um,
Wait.
I think
Okay, wait, keep talking. I have to look something up.
Yeah, I just think for this team, there's two times where I've probably in the last like few years that the Raptors have like considered tanking or thought about. That's like the COVID season and probably now. I think where I differ in the COVID season, I was heavy on Team Tank. The season felt lost. Half the team had COVID. They lost they lost by 50 points. They had Tremont Waters as their starting point guard. There just didn't seem like an actual point to that particular season. But I think a major difference between that team and this team is they had ready-made established players that didn't necessarily need reps. They had Fred VanVleet. They had Pascal Siakam. They had OG Anunoby. All guys that have been on the team for a long time and won a championship. So them not playing in games as much, them losing games in whatever like front office shenanigans that you want to, Malachi Flynn and Jalen Harris leading your team for a month.
We in North.
Man, Jalen Harris, he fooled me for a week. He fooled me, and then I saw his stats in Europe. I'm like, oh, he's not good. But besides the point,
CBL
those
legend now. He
yeah,
came and did it in Canada again.
those guys don't need reps. They know who they are. They're already good players, and they were good players after that. The Raptors' current young players are not there. You want them to succeed and you want their success to lead to wins, because if it leads to wins, that creates more habits. The Raptors, if they had played the if they had the number one defense the last 7 games and they lost all of those games, that'd be a really tough pill probably for them to swallow. Like, would that be worth it? Honestly. So you want Scottie to play well. You want him to win player of the week. You want RJ to shoot like Kevin Durant from spot up threes for a week, because that's important and it leads to positive reps overall. And maybe one day they'll be established as like a Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, but they're not there. They need to play as much as possible. And ideally, IQ plays and they play together, because we have not seen that for a full year. So they have to play. They have to succeed. That the Raptors have already paid those guys and they're banking on those guys driving the franchise forward. So I
So
don't understand personally wanting them not to do well.
they if they so let's say you said you never want them to lose again. If they win out, they will have
Yes.
gone on a 40-game win streak. Now, if I were to ask you, hey, or if I were to tell you that a team had a 40-game win streak in an 82-game season, how many wins do you think that team would have had that season? Like, I'm thinking like 76. I'm
Yeah,
thinking they set the record, right?
yeah,
The
100%.
Raptors would finish with 50. You know? Like, in the past 2 weeks, they've won a third of their games, or almost half of their games, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that's the they've been making very quick work of vaulting themselves out of, let's say, the tankathon odds, right? Now, I think, and I said it in the podcast where I got, asked about, is this Raptors draft the most important in history? I don't think it is. I still think it's the 2016 draft. It's the amount of good stuff that came out of that for the team
Yeah.
is insane. But I think it's imperative. I said whether they select at 9, 7, 4, 1, that this draft creates a co-star for Scottie Barnes.
Yeah.
Because when you look at this roster, as much as you and I know, like RJ Barrett, as much as we are excited for Gradey Dick's future and Jacoby Walter's
Mhm.
future, I don't see an easy all-star on this roster besides Scottie
Yeah.
Barnes. Like, could RJ, let's say this team ends up good down the road somehow, like the path has been laid and RJ maybe the defense gets better. It's been better lately.
Yeah.
Maybe the defense is a little bit better. Maybe he's sleepwalking to like 22, 6, and 5 as a third option or a second. Like, who knows how the hell it happens, right? But maybe. But you need like that easy all-star to find its way onto the roster, because you just can't win without. You need two, at least
Yeah.
two. And like the best guys drag some guys in with them. But man, the Raptors now are ahead of what, I guess they're ahead of 5 teams. They're 6th in all of the tankathon things. I don't know exactly where I sit with it, because I think that there's stuff coming. I think that there are changes that are looming on the horizon, and the horizon being a week. Like the trade deadline is in a week, more or
Yeah.
less, right? I think change is coming. And I
Agreed.
think when I said that the Raptors have been playing so well, they've been winning games, they have 6 guys averaging double digits. Chris Boucher is in that. Bruce Brown is in that. Kelly Olynyk is just shy of being number 7. Their veterans have been playing extremely good basketball. And as much as we like Jacoby, if Jacoby plays Bruce Brown's minutes instead, that's a sizable change. If Chris Boucher is replaced by Jonathan Mobo, sizable change, you know? And I guess what I really want to ask is, they are 1-8 with Emmanuel Quickly in the lineup. What do you think is on the horizon for this team's winning ways? And I know you say you're not supposed to want, because that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is like, no matter how anybody feels about tanking, it's like, go up to the player, go ask Scottie, like, oh, you're trying to lose, right? He's gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? What do you think happened? You've been clairvoyant. It's
Yeah.
clairvoyant Trey.
Look, the Raptors have positioned themselves to be like a facilitator for whatever big trade happens at the deadline. They have $40 million of expiring contracts between Davion, Bruce, and Chris. They've kept Bruce throughout the summer, probably against like a lot of people's judgment. They could have pocketed that to make the team better in order to make a trade like this for that legit day.
We
So
already talked, like, who the hell are they signing? We already did that dance. We're like, who the hell do they sign?
yeah. So if I were to guess, like at bare minimum, 2 of the 3 of those guys are traded. They're packaged in some way, and the Raptors are taking on a bad contract, whether to get like a first or like a few seconds. I think from an asset perspective, you need Bruce Brown to turn into something, even though he's played well. The odds of a guy like that probably re-signing and staying with the team are probably low. He probably wants to play for a team like the Denver Nuggets, where he was showcased. He did well in, helped him get paid. I think Chris, he's in a position where you probably want Mobo ideally at some point in the season to play again. You probably want Chomsky towards the end of the season, maybe after the G League playoffs to play else.
April, yeah,
Yeah, you want him to play. And Chris is in the way, sadly. So I think you're trading him too. Davion is the one that I think I change my mind depending on the day, because I don't think they're going to pocket anything significant for him realistically. Maybe a second, but probably. But he's been very positive for their defense and allowing their younger guys to play together. And actually for Scottie, him being a playmaker and allowing him to be the connective piece while sitting in the side has been very good for his development and has shown his playmaking to pop since he's played as well. So if I were to guess, Bruce and Chris get traded, and Davion, I think, is really just dependent on whether they need the salary or not. But I'm okay with him staying past the deadline.
2, I think, would be a lot,
You think so? Yeah.
Well, because I think the Raptors, if you ask them, like, if you could get stuff for 2 guys minimum, they'd be like,
Mhm.
yes. Yes,
Oh
of
yeah, yeah.
course. Uh, but 2, it's tough to make trades work. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
Davion, in a nutshell, we've talked about, like, if a team wanted to trade for Davion and it's a team that sees what Davion is doing currently, maybe they have a high pickup point defense. A lot of teams play that way in the playoffs. Maybe they, like, 4 minutes they want a bit in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
In the second quarter, maybe they want Davion Mitchell to hound the hell out of a star guard on the other end.
Mhm.
Maybe there's a team that's going to play the Cavs, for example, where they're like, we want this guy to make Darius Garland's body ache. You know what I mean? So So as far as like that goes, maybe, but that team has to be there and they have to want
Yeah.
Davion. And so, and Chris Boucher is a little bit more like accessible. He kind of makes it work regardless of his situation. Bruce is in a similar vein, but it's tough to make it work. Those are the guys that will have, Saturday morning, there'll be a podcast with myself and a whole bunch of the other, the goofies,
Other lads.
the lads, where we'll talk almost fully about trade stuff. But that's about who's going out. We're going to talk about the talks about who could possibly be coming in after a word from our dear sponsor, Axe. Let me tell you something, Trey. Okay? We're going to spray it for good luck. You got to get the Axe in the air, the sea mist and grapefruit. It's a wonderful smell, but you can find the Axe and Toronto Raptors 30th anniversary limited edition collection. It's available for a limited time only at all major retailers. That is Walmart, Shoppers Drug Mart, and Real Canadian Superstore. You can get it now before it's too late. And I'll tell you what, man. Okay? They made this deal. Maybe because they knew the winning streak was coming. They want to be a part of a winning organization. And this is for the 30th anniversary. 30 years in the making, Axe and Raptors coming together. And just like the Raptors, Axe is all about pushing boundaries and breaking new ground. Celebrate this milestone with Axe, with Pull-Up Tray, and with the Raptors, and feel the energy of the game every day. You can go grab some Axe Raptors limited edition 30th anniversary merch. Maybe keep for a keepsake. It always, no matter what it is, if somebody showed me something from like 1995 that was Raptors apparel, could you imagine if there was an Axe bottle from 1995 or like a body wash or what the hell?
Yeah.
And it had Raptors on it, I'd be like, that's cool as hell.
Yeah.
There's keepsakes, If someone has a shirt that's 30 years old, I'm like, that's cool.
Those really go hard. Like those like old 90s Blue Jays stuff. You actually have
I have a championship. Yeah,
Yes, you do.
my mom gave it to me from their second. I have the back-to-back hoodie.
Oh, see, that stuff goes hard. And the 90s stuff, there's a different like gradient to it too.
Higher
Nice.
quality, they say.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, are you ready for the sick slop? The most disgusting? The Raptors. And there's talk about this, right? We have reporting coming from all directions.
Yeah.
Mark Stein is in here. Jake Fisher is in here. Michael Grange is in here. Josh Lewenberg is in here. Doug Smith is in here. It is a veritable sausage party of sources in here, man. There's a lot going on because the Raptors are like, we're trying to get in the middle of something. And then out at left field, it's, oh, hey, Brandon Ingram to the Raptors. They're sniffing around. My finger's going out to your wrist. I'm testing your pulse on this. Brandon Ingram, the Raptor. I have stats I'd like to get into, but go ahead.
Look, part of me wants to say yes, could be cool, but I don't see it like being feasible, and two, I don't think he creates enough like impact for it to work. Like I'm assuming if the Pelicans were to get off of him, it's not expiring contracts. It's probably RJ Barrett, and I want to see RJ and Scottie together. Like I think RJ offers rim pressure in a way that Scottie doesn't, and it provides a great yin and yang of them playing together. And it's very rare you have a guy with RJ's level of ability to get to the rim be so willing to be a second scorer and play off the ball, especially as a catch and shoot shooter. So I think it works really well with Scottie. Brandon Ingram, like he offers like additional playmaking, mid-range scoring, another guy who can get to the middle like Scottie can to a degree. But his level of play has gone down over the last year or two. And I'm assuming they're poking around because it's a buy low opportunity. You get him at a lower fixture than what he wanted a couple years ago. You probably can sign him a lot cheaper too. And you're hoping you get that upswing of him being more healthy in the next season or so. But
So the rumors are that Brandon didn't get a $36 million extension per year.
Oh.
How rich is that for you, for Brandon Ingram?
I think
he's almost 28, I think.
Yeah. I think in a vacuum, like anywhere between like Well, his play anywhere between like 35 to like 38 probably makes sense. I just don't think it makes sense for the Raptors. Like it doesn't improve them defensively, and I don't think the shot making that he has like from the mid range is as valuable as it would be on another team.
Well, the thing is, so I had similar suspicions of or worries of fit. And I
Yeah.
wanted to go look because I thought as well. And I'll just say flatly, I wouldn't be interested in an RJ going out, Ingram coming in trade. Uh, unless the Pelicans were somehow crazy about RJ Barrett and were adding stuff, I guess, but I don't
Yeah.
think that's real. I had to go back 6 seasons to find Ingram having a cut frequency that compares to RJ's time in New York. And
Wow.
there is no equivalence to RJ in Toronto. As you said, RJ has been perfectly willing to do stuff off ball and make his money off ball. And also he's been an excellent pick and roll ball handler this year. The average second per touch and dribbles per touch for Ingram, seconds 4, dribbles 3, and that's over the last 4 seasons. Over RJ's last 3 seasons, New York and Toronto, he's using about a full second less every single time he touches the ball. Think
Wow.
about how that compounds. If RJ is touching the ball 60 times, if
Hmm.
Ingram is touching the ball 60 times, a full minute less over the course of 48 of 32, 33 minutes of a game, that's a stark difference. That's a huge difference. And that's Ingram can get himself to the rim. Like he doesn't have, but that's the thing too, is like with Ingram, I typically really like looking at creators and seeing how often they get to the rim and score at the rim without assists. I think that's a really good
Yeah.
indicator of something, but not if they never get to the rim because Ingram can get himself to the rim, but he does it so rarely that you wished that he was supplementing it with cutting. He's huge. He
Hmm.
finishes well off of
Yeah.
cuts, actually, but he doesn't cut. He doesn't offensive rebound. He's one of the better playmakers from the middle in all of the NBA. However, he and Scottie are going to occupy some of the similar spaces. And while I think they could do some fun wing stuff that Scottie and Pascal managed to do, I think Ingram is not as good as Pascal. And I think
Yeah.
you'd just be it just wouldn't make sense to me. I think that
Yeah.
RJ bought into this and fits well and does his thing. For as long as he's a Raptor, at the very least he's bought in and he's been, making it work. Ingram is extremely talented, but he's extremely injured. He might be extremely
Mhm.
expensive, and I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze there. Is there a possibility where Ingram is a better player than Barrett over the next 4 years?
Yeah.
Sure. But swinging on that, I think is way more risky than it probably needs to be. And I know there are some people who like that. And because I know some people watched Ingram, and a lot of people are fans from back in the day where he didn't really make it happen on the Lakers, but then he got most improved player in New Orleans. He was like 23 and 5 on
Yeah.
efficient scoring, and it was kind of awesome to watch. But we're like 4 years removed from that. It's interesting though.
Yeah, and it's tough. And I think the cool part of this discussion, like RJ's contract is kind of swing into a positive. He's on a fairly cheap deal for his production, and
Yeah, 26.
yeah, and to swap him for a player that's going to make potentially $10 to $12 million more, that just doesn't make more sense because the Raptors are already kind of in a pinch cap wise.
Yeah. And like I know that there's some meta stuff going on here where you could say that the Raptors are looking at this season and trying to maybe after the trade deadline want to get their wrangle the tank once more and maybe Ingram
Mhm.
sits.
Yeah,
Maybe it's like a hardcore tank. Maybe it's whatever. That could be a possibility. However, that's so much speculation down the road that like for you and I, there's so much basketball to
yeah,
talk about besides that we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And I guess we'll be having friends on the podcast for Saturday's podcast. Maybe someone wants to, champion those views. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Wiggins also rumored. This one has been floating around. Uh, and Matt Moore reported it today, I believe. It's
Yep.
been floating around for longer than that. And typically, I think if I'm hearing stuff, that the likelihood is not super strong because, again, I've gotten some things right, and I typically don't voice something unless I'm very confident about it. I didn't voice this one because I'm not very confident about it. We talked about it, though, in the summer. We
Yeah.
said Wiggins would fit on this team in a tremendous way. We think he makes a lot of sense next to Scottie. He really simplifies everybody's role on the rest of the team, and he doesn't have any of those like ball holding hangups that Brandon Ingram does. The proposed trade is that Bruce is going out and Wiggins is coming in. I don't know what is getting tossed around as far as like draft picks, but that is a steal of a deal for the Raptors. Like the
Yeah.
Ingram one is like maybe he's better, but that swing is maybe not worth it because the juice not worth the squeeze. The Wiggins one, if that's even real, I think
Mhm.
that's like you get to squeeze 6 oranges and there's like a lot of juice because
Yeah.
he's on a contract going forward. He so clearly does things that this roster needs. He can fit for like years going ahead. Uh, it makes a lot of sense to me, although I don't think it's happening.
Yeah. I would shed tears if this trade happened. It
Yeah.
it's
It's like,
it
do you remember when we thought Dennis Smith Jr. was coming over in the Schroeder trade? And we're like, hey, that's great. And then they're like, no, it's
we
Spencer
praised Masai for
Dinwiddie
like
and he's
5
getting
minutes.
bottom. They're like, if Wiggins comes over, I'm impressed because at
Yeah.
some point there's like meta team building where you're stacking certain types of contracts, you're getting
Yeah.
like a haul of picks, and you're picking your year. Like we're going forward, we make the big trade for a star this year. Like there's meta stuff like that, but then there's also just like you know trading for better players sometimes. Terrence Ross
Yeah.
and Serge Ibaka, it happened,
I
right?
I literally was gonna say that.
So I'll let you take it because you know where I'm going.
Yeah, it's one of those trades where you can have a guy that both fits now and later. He stacks in and fits the archetype that the Raptors truly want, and you're identifying a player that's at a relevant and fairly cheap contract that could plug in with the team, and you're swapping out for an extremely better player. Like a wing defense is one of the things the Raptors like truly are lacking currently. Like RJ's been better. Gradey's had ups and downs like throughout the season,
That
mostly
was a
downs.
really polite way to say that about both of them.
I saw RJ stop a back cut. I remember I messaged. I was like, "Wow, he stopped a back cut."
And his
He's
point of attack stuff had a little more
yeah,
juice to it. I think,
yeah,
yeah, it's the team is it's like when Orlando beat the Raptors despite having everybody missing, and it's like, well, when a team wins, when they're playing well, everyone has that little extra pep in their step. RJ
yeah,
currently has that pep. I hope it stays
yeah. That
forever.
just makes you try. And I think for like Wiggins is a guy that you could when the team is good, it's one of those trades that you're going to look back and say they won in a massive way. And this is one of the reasons why they're actually a good team. If you can put a front court of him, Scottie, and Jakob, you have 3 strong defenders, guys that all rebound fairly well for their position too. That you have the potential of creating a really elite defense and another guy that actually shoots the basketball really well and plays off the ball well with Scottie as well, and a very good cutter and an athletic finisher.
Can
It's
create a pinch too. Like you can
He
give him
does.
a pinch, you can give him a pinch post, you can give him an ISO, you can give him like pick and rolls. You don't want the full meal to be that way, but sure,
Yeah,
like a little side.
exactly. And for all those reasons, that's why I don't think the trade is
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
going to happen. Like it just makes too much sense. He's too good. And if I'm Miami, like although he's signed to like I know they want contracts that are either 2 years long or a year long. Like he's too good to say like, oh, this contract is too long. I don't want Andrew Wiggins.
That was what I was thinking. I was like,
Yeah.
why isn't Miami trying to get Wiggins back in that situation? Like, is he not like they're playing Haywood Highsmith? Do you not
Yeah.
think that Wiggins would be, an upgrade there? Because they care about winning. They want to win. They've not
Yeah.
been great, but Jesus, man, Wiggins, I I would never turn my nose up at Wiggins. I just don't think that's
Yeah.
possible.
I think there's a higher outcome that they get Bruce and Wiggins and the Raptors take the junk and picks than
That's
to get one.
that like I wouldn't be surprised. That feels like enough tradey
Yeah.
talk. But I love the point you made quickly that Jakob, Scottie, and Wiggins, the amount of rebounding there.
Mm.
That is huge. And I just talked about
Yeah.
on the mailbag, I was reminiscing about, the championship Raptors, massive basketball team. And then when
Yeah.
the Lakers won it the next year, massive basketball team. And then the Bucks won it the next year, massive basketball team. And then the Warriors won and they weren't so big. And then the Nuggets won and they were
There.
big in their own way. And then the Celtics won, and like Porzingis makes them pretty big all at once, but they didn't really play him that much.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like big basketball. I think big basketball is awesome, and the Raptors have been playing big basketball lately. Big Dick into the Rising Stars game, huge for him. And
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see that he got selected. We've been championing Gradey for some
Yeah.
time. Thoughts? They showed the video of him finding out, and he was like, "Yep, okay, yep." He just looked. He's just kind of sheepishly being like, "Thanks, all right."
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think like the middle of the season is like a good place to look back. Like the last like 10, 15 games were definitely rough. But it's only rough in comparison of how well he started the actual season. And you are thinking, wow, the Raptors have a chance to maybe they found their second star in their second pairing. Doug Smith reported that he's untouchable. They clearly believe in the guy a lot as well. I think the overall like first half of the season is like a success, and like that's indicative of that. So I'm happy for him. Like ideally we get another. I would hope that he enters the summer having another stretch where he pops off again, and it is really showing that he has like this fringe all star, maybe sneaks into the all star game type talent. But happy for him overall.
Yeah, this using this as an opportunity to look back is good. I do like that a lot. 15.7 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, 2 assists. We always knew the points were going to come down because players were coming
Yeah.
back into the lineup. And when it was Davion Mitchell and Gradey Dick running wild, I mean, Grady was taking 26 shots and scoring, 32, 34 points. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But as everybody comes back into the lineup and as they start saying, okay, we're going to gear up, we're going to play better defense, I think it not only makes sense for Grady to get less shots, but to use the opportunity to sit on the bench and assess what, really high level defense looks like. Grady reads things well defensively. There's a reason he's always trying to take charges. Guys who take a lot of charges typically see what's happening before it's happening. He's just not getting there quick enough.
Yeah.
Grady reads the floor on both sides of the floor really well. Just need him to keep putting on weight. I think he's lost
Mm.
some of it throughout the season. Uh, he just needs to keep weight on, put more weight on, keep getting stronger throughout his younger years. And I think that will not only help his jumper from as far as like hitting it more because of that strength, especially since he's
Mhm.
a two motion shooters requires a lot of strength, a lot of core strength too, in particular, to keep the body connected, to make sure you can flow. But defensively, he's got a lot to learn. And he's not just learn, but he just has to the size has to be a thing.
Yeah.
He has to fill out the feet. I don't know how much quicker the feet get, but he has to realize like where his shortcuts will be. And also he gets to go under screens sometimes, but most of the time they're saying go pick him up 34 feet from the basket. Let's see it. And that's tough for him to survive in. When you and I talked about him being like hopefully finding someday his way to being a positive defender or at least neutral, a
Yeah.
lot of it incorporated like being kicked out of screens by supportive defenders, hanging out on
Mhm.
the weak side with his size, making reads as a dig man, jumping passing lanes, and taking charges. That stuff. I still believe very much in that stuff. But the Raptors roster for a long time had nobody to kick him out. They're like, well, just give it a go. See how it goes, brother. And it's been bad.
Yeah.
Overall, though, the 3-point shot, what is he sitting at? Like 34% this far into the season, just a shade under 35%. We've talked about the spot up threes, and like he's shooting like 41, 42% on his spot up threes this season. I actually went and watched back all of his spot up threes on Synergy. Above the break threes, when I looked, he was 34 of 72 for 47%. So spacing out when it's a spot
Yeah.
up opportunity rather than being used as like this gunner off screens, as a
Mhm.
pick and roll ball handler where he's shooting. He was like 2 for 12 on pull up threes. So it's not great. Um, those other things are tanking his percentages, but he's doing the bare minimum he needs to as a shooter, and he's punching up at the elite stuff and
Yeah.
hitting on enough of it for I think everybody to believe, and obviously to make the Rising Stars game. Also, I looked at this the other day, and I know this a little bit. We're still pretty close to the draft he was drafted in. So
Yeah.
for people who didn't like Gradey as a prospect, there's going to be people who are looking for every opportunity to say, hey, he's not that good. And also for people who did like him as a prospect,
Mhm.
myself, yourself, others, we're looking for every opportunity to validate our pre-draft opinions. So I went looking at the at rim finishing and stuff like that. And you know what? Nobody cares that Jacoby Walter is finishing worse at the rim than Gradey. Nobody cares that Trey Young is finishing worse at the rim than Gradey. There was that stat that came out that was like, he's the worst. And they're like, we use this
Yeah.
third party judgment system. It's like, okay, I get it. Gradey has not been a good finisher. But how they figured out to make him the worst, I couldn't believe. Because I actually just went looking at the numbers. He's just not the worst. I
Yeah.
got beef. I got beef, man. But regardless of all of that, Grady, we need more layups to go in, brother.
Please.
We need you to make some more of those going forward. Any final Grady thoughts before we move on?
I think he's one of the guys that is going to really benefit like from the All-Star break and just being able to come back, having that break because they played a lot of basketball. And he
But how much of
realistically
a
like
break does he get? Because he's going to the game. I guess
it's
it's front
it's
loaded.
a yeah, it's the Rising Stars game. Like,
Well, also
how much interviews is he
Grady.
taken for the Rising Stars game?
But here's what I was thinking: Grady doesn't do his podcast anymore, right? Because he had a
I don't think so.
podcast.
Yeah, he did.
And he's like a popular name coming out of the draft, and he's just a popular name. Do you think they'll use him as like a correspondent, or do you know like popular young players
Yeah.
they put in seats close? You know, maybe like is Grady celebrating dunks with like LeBron? I you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like courtside. I don't know if yeah, but
Uh,
you know that kind of stuff happens. You're
yeah.
like, what? You're like, why the hell is Ben Matherin there? But Ben Matherin's there. You know, like
He
is
is there.
Grady maybe there?
Yeah,
Just
that
eat
is
good.
true.
Just like eat a lot of food while you're there, you know? Put on
Yeah,
some
please.
LBs.
Yeah.
Hmm.
100%. And like some way, somehow, this team is going to change most likely at the deadline, and that probably means more shots for him, especially towards the end of the season. That they're probably going to play him and Jacoby a lot more.
So
Than,
or go ahead.
no, I just he's going to get his opportunity again, even when IQ comes back. So I'm assuming I'm predicting late February, early March, 20 point per game stretch.
That would be pretty fun. Like
Yeah.
I'd really enjoy that. The reason why I wanted you to keep going was because what I'm about to say is nonsensical and not about basketball whatsoever. Uh, for the road trip you mentioned, for anybody who's listening, myself and Trey, we're going to Mont Tremblant to enjoy the snow and the scenic. Yeah, we're just going
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
You said you wanted white music on the way up there, and when you said some way, somehow, it made me think of that Nickelback song. Is Nickelback because
So
yeah, some
okay.
way,
Wait.
somehow,
Yeah.
I don't know the rest of the words, but it doesn't. I don't like Nickelback, but do they? When you hear a Nickelback song, are you like, white music done right? Like, what do you think?
Nickelback doesn't get me there. I find myself to be a savant of white people music.
A
But
savant.
a
You're so
savant.
stupid, dude. Oh my god.
Myself and other than fellow our writer, Makai Bruce, we are having an ox battle. We're going to post at the end of this trip our list of our favorite white people songs, and you guys are going to vote on who has the better list. I feel
I
like I'm
can
going to win this in a runaway. To be honest, I'm seasoned, but we'll
You
see.
guys were doing basically the equivalent of like, you know, when you walk in the gym and some guys are getting shots up and you look across?
Yeah.
I saw the shots Kai was getting up. I'm like, this guy's trash. The shots you were getting up, I'm like, yeah, he can probably hoop a little bit. But Kai, he has to start doing the work now.
He does.
Actually, for listeners who are fans of Kai's writing, he'll be at my place this time tomorrow night, all the
You
way
will.
from New York into Toronto. Come to join me in Rexdale Squalor. We're gonna see how that goes. Um, is there anything else Raptors that we should talk about before we get out of here?
I guess they have 2 more games. I think they have 3 more games that we
Oh, you
play
want to try
again.
your hand at predicting?
Let's
Oh,
let's
I like
keep
that.
keep the ball rolling.
Okay, well,
Let's
okay, I'll
see.
I'll I'll tee it up for you. You just keep your brain thinking very hard. Let's see if you're a savant in any other way. Let's get you walking on those toes again. So they play Chicago on Friday, and they play the Los Angeles Clippers on Sunday, and
Okay.
then they play New York Tuesday, Memphis Wednesday. We got once again 4 games in between podcasts. What is the
That's
record?
that's tough. That's tough. I'm gonna say they beat the Bulls. I'm confident in that they don't really have a body for Scott Barnes.
No.
I'm gonna
Patrick Williams, he doesn't have the juice for that, man.
yeah they. I'll say this for Friday actually, but potential Patrick Williams buy low opportunity, but
I'm not there, man. I'm not.
I'll,
Also, I
I'll,
realized I have dumbbells in the background. I wonder if I seem like a jacked Judd. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, I
yeah.
just leave those there, dude, in case
Samson
I want to.
lifts.
Yeah, in
It's
case I want
just
to get a lift in.
I'm gonna say they beat the Clippers too, and then we get to 7, and then they lose to the Knicks.
Okay,
Yeah.
7 would be gnarly, dude. Also, that's why I can't move to Scarborough is I become like a muscle head because I'd be going to the gym with you all the time.
Yeah, I need it.
We're
It'll
we're
keep me
night
going.
owls, and if there
Yeah.
was a guy who's like, "Yeah, I'll scoop you. We'll head to the gym." I think that's bad news for me. I'm putting on too much muscle.
Yeah,
Too much.
your shot's falling if we become gym buddies.
Ooh, also, we'll get to talk about the back end of February is the media game. So all the salacious, maybe by that time we'll get Blake as a guest on the podcast. We'll
Mm.
bug him because he's not coaching. He'll be playing this year. His return to the
Ooh.
court. Exciting stuff. So yeah, everyone stay tuned for, I mean, maybe instead of a Wednesday night podcast for the 5th, for the morning of the 6th, because that's the trade deadline, maybe we should just go live. Maybe I'll go live and you can hop on at some point and
Yeah.
that'll be a pull up. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But
We'll figure it
everyone,
out,
hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Helps out the channel. Look forward to a road trip podcast that will be made. We want to be the greatest road trip podcast of all time. That means we're beating Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye. That was the name of their podcast, right?
Yeah,
Road
like
tripping.
road tripping. Yeah.
Jeez, that was the start of it all, right? Like hardly
Yeah.
anybody knew that Kyrie had like the white girls only party, but when he went on that podcast and was like, "The Earth is flat," geez, it started something, man. Like things really started rolling from there. Also, wait, let me address something quickly. I said that Kyrie had a white girls only party. I don't know if that's been confirmed. That's like a Twitter rumor. So I'm not standing on that. I don't know if that's
Okay,
real.
fair enough.
Wait, what do you think? Let me get you in here on this.
I'm leaning hard. Yes.
Okay. At that point in time, at that point in
And then
time,
he was found.
it- oh boy. Okay. Thanks
Oh,
everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it very much. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, from myself, from Trevon. Have a blessed day, and we'll see you.